And it's not your fault that you don't know. The
Absolutely.
people that know were taught it by someone, or they were encouraged to pursue it. They were a boy in university and their parent told them, go study finance. Like that. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no like shit. And that's the big thing I've had to overcome. It's like, oh, I feel like I should know this already. Like, I feel like I should know this already. Why don't I know this already? And like getting upset with myself that I don't know things. And I just have to remember, like, duh, I don't know them. No one taught me them. Like I never was shown this roadmap before. I'm looking at a map I've never seen. So it's one of those things too, is like getting over yourself and getting over your ego for that larger vision and like for the bigger picture. Kiss my aesthetics, branding, marketing, entrepreneurship. Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. We have a repeat guest. We love repeat guests. Welcome back, Shay.
Hello, hello. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like it's so needed to have this conversation right now.
Yes, girl. Yes. And we were just catching up before this that the last time you were on was actually back episode 123, which was a year ago, if you can believe that. We covered so much content in that first episode, especially like your backstory and how you got started, everything like this, all the way through to like, we were talking about AI, like we were all over the map. But for
Yes.
anyone who doesn't know you, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and who you help?
Yes, so I am Shay Bacani. I am the owner of Centure Financial. This is a financial firm specifically for women in business. We work primarily with beauty, health, as well as wellness brands. And really, our primary role is to help our clients be able to manage their finances, raise capital. And we've also recently launched a new service as of last year, helping them sell their businesses. And really, our
Ooh.
primary goal between every service that we offer, whether it's those services or it's custom, is to make sure that they have a understanding of their money, as well as putting more equity and assets into the hands of women.
Oh, love that. I'm all about it. I love having these conversations at the kickstart of a new year because I think it's a great time. Are you a January fan? Like, do you like January or are you like, ew, January gross?
I don't look at it the same way as everyone else. I'm still
Interesting.
hibernating in January. Like my new year doesn't start
Ah,
until March. So at this time, I'm still hibernating. Like I don't really like to leave the house at this time. I'm still strategizing because if you think about it, it still is winter, And so it's like, it's very weird
interesting.
that a new year would, start in the middle of this time. So it's still like very fresh. Like my New Year's
Okay.
resolutions, I have them all year round, but I don't really like go after things until like March.
Interesting. Interesting. I, on the other hand, love a clean slate. I love to put last year behind us. I like to look forward. I want tabula rasa. I want clean books. I want clean spreadsheets. I want to start over. That's last year's mess. We'll deal with that at tax season. But I think it's such a great time to be having these conversations, right? And being proactive, especially women, especially with politics, the way that things are going,
Mhm.
especially with the world that we live in 2025. What do you think are some of the things that are of paramount importance for women in business when it comes to finances in 2025?
Ooh, I feel like 2025 is going to be an interesting year for everyone. So, one of the things that I think we need to note is kind of what is happening. So, kind of the state of the economy, very brief. I'll try to keep it in 2 minutes or less. Credit card defaults are at an all time high. So many businesses
Mm-hmm.
are closing, they're trying to sell. And a lot of that is just due to the state of the economy. People want to liquidate their assets. So, anytime you are in an economical recession or whatever they want to call this time period, many people want to liquidate. So, a lot of people do want to
Yeah.
sell, they want to get out. So, I think the number one thing that you have to go into this year thinking is how do you want to end it? How do you want December 31st, 2025 to look like for you? Because it's going to be different. And oftentimes you may have
Mm-hmm.
to have that uncomfortable conversation. For some people, it's scaling, it's getting bigger, it's getting larger. I work with a lot of clients where they're like, okay, if people want to sell, we need to be buying up this year. And then there's some who are like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to play this game, and they want to sell. So be honest with yourself of what that looks like for you. I think that's first. Once you have that understanding of how you want to end the year, I think it's best to kind of go, okay, what do we need to do from a financial standpoint? What do sales need to look like? And then put a routine behind it. So oftentimes people make these lofty financial goals and they don't really have a financial routine or a financial system to actually be able to make that happen. So I think that's really where you want to start this year at.
Oh my gosh, you couldn't have said it better. It's one of the goals for myself as well. This last 2 years is when I finally hired like an actual bookkeeper after
Mm-hmm.
doing my business for 10 years. My gosh, is that helpful? I was like, wow, holy moly. And then also having like those kind of conversations of like, now we're at the level of business where I think when it was just me doing it, I was really looking at a month to month basis. And now we're looking
Mm-hmm.
quarter to quarter and year to year. It's like there's a longer timeline. So I know we're all kind of coming off of a rough Q4. I don't know
Yep.
if this happened for you, but a lot of our clients really struggled to like, especially on social media, even just get their name out there between all of like, because it was an election year, right? Like this is the first time I've really seen it actually super impact on the business side. There's an 84% increase in paid political content on all the social platforms this last quarter. So no wonder nobody's stuff's getting seen. And of course, you're having budget conversations and you're setting your goals and figuring out your ROI. How are you navigating those conversations with your clients of like, okay, this is how we plan for 2025, knowing that maybe 2024 wasn't your Q4 wasn't your strongest quarter?
So yeah, I've had to have those very difficult conversations because Q4 was a very, I would say, weird time because we always kind of
Yeah,
expect those slow dips unless you obviously like have a product-based brand and Black Friday. But for the
sure.
most part, everybody kind of experiences that dip, whether it's in October, November, or December. But I definitely seen that a little bit more in November because people were also just cautious. They're like, I don't want to make a move
Yeah,
until I know what the results are going to be. And then also you have just fear-based media in people's minds where they are also just scared in general for what the year ahead looks like. So for a lot of our clients, I'm like, we just have to pivot. So what I do a lot of market research. Like do a lot of market research for 2025 all the way to 2027 to understand, okay, if we are going into 2025, what does the future of the business look like? Because I'm like you in the sense where once we get January 1st, all that stuff doesn't matter. And I think that's how I'm
yep,
different from a lot of people in finance because they kind of go over the metrics over and over again. I think that's helpful because you do have to understand patterns. But at some
sure,
point, you have to look ahead, especially when you
sure.
understand that the future is changing. Like AI, we have quantum computers coming out now. Like there's robots. Like we are going into like a global economy. So there's so much happening so fast. And so at some point, we have to say, okay, what happened last year was good or whether it's bad, we have to move forward. So I think
Right.
that's our number one thing is like, okay, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to pivot? If we know that your customer is going into the new year, maybe they don't have as much that they had last year. Maybe they are part of that, this huge debt default. What are you going to do differently? Are we going to target a different
Hmm.
customer? Are we going to have a different price point? So all of it is just really about changing and adapting. And you have to be very, very quick.
And I think that's what makes business fun in a
Hmm.
way. Like that's what I think true entrepreneurs are in business
Yep.
because I think they find that it feels like a game. And I felt that way for a really long time until I had employees. And I was like,
Yeah, you
oh
don't want to play that
shit.
game
I
anymore.
was like, "Oh man, this is now I'm responsible for someone's
Mhm.
salary." That's a big transition. So, I think there's a lot of people like you said, a lot of people are selling, a lot of people are maybe looking to buy up businesses. Let's talk about that transition phase from being like solo entrepreneur to hiring your first time team member and what that can look like for your finances is the big lesson I had to learn the freaking hard way this last year was like, "Oh yeah, healthcare." Like, "Oh yeah, I want us to have a great healthcare plan." And so I went super bougie on the healthcare plan. I was like, "Oh my
Mm.
god, this is so expensive." Like, holy
Yep.
shit. Like our minimum the income that we have to make per month to just like cover our expenses now is way higher than it used to be. So talk to us about that transition or like what that looks like for a business owner who's still solo and what the pros and cons are for that like independent contractor economy versus full-time employee route. Like how do you start to map that out for them?
Okay, so first thing I always tell clients who say this, like, I want a team and I want this, I always say, like, why do you want this?
Uh-huh.
Because oftentimes it's ego, it's to validate, hey, my business is so successful, look at my team. And I always have
Mm-hmm.
to remind people, look, this in this modern world, that's not what a successful business looks like. Like I think we're used to the Fortune 500 companies and all these departments. And I think at one point to be successful, you needed that, but you don't need that. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can probably now, as we go into 2025 and 2026, we probably won't really need a big team as much as we used to because we
Mm-hmm.
have such a quality tech stack and all these things. So I think also understanding that the future doesn't require so many full-time employees, but from a financial perspective, what I always say is, are you able to support that person for the next 3 months if we didn't have our usual revenue? And so a lot of that
Right.
times it's like reoccurring revenue, like how much do you have in reoccurring revenue to justify hiring this person full time? If you don't have it, then you need to hire them as an independent contractor till you get to that point. Because if you don't have the stability to have
Oh, did I
a
lose
full
you?
time, staff member, or at least the ability to kind of get those funds from somewhere. Like if you don't, like say you're like, yeah, we have it, but just in case, like, are you able to go get funding if you ever needed it to? Like, if
Right.
payroll was ever low. So it's also thinking about that, like how much do you have in savings? So I don't recommend full-time employees for people if you cannot justify paying them 3 months right now, or else it's going to be too stressful. And so oftentimes women try to do that. And I love that you said that with the healthcare. I want to get the best healthcare for my team. Okay, I've actually had to tell a client this. She's getting ready to sell, and she's like, she has maternity leave and she has all these things for her team. And I was like, babe, you are not a Fortune 500 company. You cannot do
Mm-hmm.
that. And I mean this
Mm-hmm.
with love because I know as women, we're givers and like you want to create a culture of giving. And I love that. But at the same time, you have to be smart and it's okay to tell
Yes.
your team like, hey, this is what we have now, but in 3 years, here's what I plan to give you guys. Like you give them the blueprint. Like I know this isn't Blue Cross Blue Shield or anything, but this is what I can afford to give you guys now. And my goal in 3 years is to be able to give you this. And here's what the finances have to look like. Like be transparent, but you can't do that. I don't recommend that. I think that's why it's very important to have someone in your finance team. Like we run those numbers before. Like we would run the
Yeah.
numbers of like, okay, here's exactly how much you would have to pay them. Here's what taxes look like. Cause that's also a hidden thing that no one thinks about is employer taxes, especially being in California. It is a
Mm-hmm.
pain. And so you have to think about
Mm-hmm.
all these things. And I know in some states you can't have independent contractors. You can. I know it's like, so you have to obviously do what works for you. But I think as a business, if you make less than $1 million, get independent contractors because
Yeah.
down the line, like it's going to be less of a headache.
Yeah, no, that's a really good kind of metric to place around it, right? Because it kind of becomes a thing of, and I'm sure you see this in your business all the time, where you have the one person who's the business owner, who's the expert, and they're
Mhm.
really good at what they do, and then they get so busy that they cannot possibly sustain their business doing it themselves. So then they get help, but then they get help, and then you're right, you have a down season or a down quarter, or you bring on benefits, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I'm responsible for not only myself but also this person, and also like you never want to bring. My biggest thing is like I never want to bring anyone on and then have to roll back what I promised them.
Yep.
Right? Like
Mhm.
way better to start like incrementally and inch your way up towards that goal than to like blow it, because then you're working so hard and you're not even net positive in your bank account. And I think this happens to so many businesses.
Yes.
Right? So talk to us about some of the clients you've helped with in like health, wellness, beauty space, like what some of their biggest problems or concerns are that you've helped them work through recently.
So I wanted to stay on the payroll topic because this happens so often. I think this is honestly a lot of the issues that we had to go through last year, where they would have a really good month and then the next month it wasn't so great. Like you said, it was so much
Mhm.
noise in their ear. So I want to talk about that because payroll was a huge issue for one of my clients, and so we had to really sit down and say, okay, what structure makes the most sense? So one of the things that we did before, we would just pay every 2 weeks, like every normal company.
Sure.
And what happened? Well, I was like, okay, what this does when we have one of those 5 week months is that cash flow is significantly less than we had anticipated. So what we did is we just switched to the first and the 15th payroll periods, which
Mhm.
sounds like a no brainer. But what this did is like we had just more control over cash. We know exactly when the money was going to go out every single month versus when those
Mhm.
5 week months did creep up on you, it really made a huge dent in the bank account. So that's one of the things that we did.
Mhm.
Another thing that we did is we also figured out ways to strategically delay payment, but also in a way that it benefits the employee or the independent contractor. So for example, they get paid for it per service, whatever service they do, they got paid for it. However, we also would do things like every quarter we gave a bonus or kit reimbursement, like supply reimbursement. If you
Ah,
have people that work from home, you can do, every quarter we do office reimbursements. And usually sometimes we do the amount, like the budget that we allocate for that is all discretionary. So it's just kind of based on how much we can afford, but we always make sure that we do that every single quarter. So it's something people
something.
can look forward to. And so I like doing that because it's not something every single month we are dedicated to paying this out because again, you're going to
Right.
run into cash flow issues. So it's every single quarter and we love that. And the team also loves that. It's something to look forward to. So as a small business, you have to be strategic in that way where it's like, okay, maybe I can't pay you a 60,000 a year salary, but what if I can pay you 40,000, a gym membership because you can, work
Yes.
out a deal with a gym company, a WeWork account, like try to do different perks because oftentimes people aren't as motivated by money as we think they are. Of
That's
course, they
such a
have to
good
have,
point.
the baseline minimum to be able to support themselves, which I believe in. But I think
Well,
always kind of just like, here's the salary, here's the healthcare. That's very outdated way of thinking. People want something else. So I think figuring out, okay, like, what do you want? What else could I offer you? I've been looking to a Pilates membership for one of my team members. I'm like, okay, I know that's what you love. And it's like, if I
yeah,
can't afford to go up on the price, maybe I can give you something else. And it still kind of gives you that incentive and that benefit of working with us.
I didn't even think about this, Shay. So I love that you're saying this because this makes so much sense, right? Like it's one of the things of perfect example. This last year, one day in September, I went to go open my laptop and it would not turn on. And laptop is toast. So it's like, okay, sick. Got to go spend $4,000 at the Apple store today to get a new laptop. I'm like, now I know one of my team members' laptops is on the verge. But it's like,
Mhm.
okay, does that become company property? Like where,
Yes.
especially with remote employees, right? Like it starts to get really complicated. And I think we're part of a culture that I love, which is being an advocate for your salary and asking for more and getting in the habit of asking for what you deserve to be paid. But that gives so much more openness to possibilities, like what you're describing of like, hey, like I'm not able to meet you there now, but what can I give you that would help you? Like, how can and one of the things our team did last year was like invest in team members' individual skill set education. So they came came to me with like, I really want to take this course. I think it would make me better at my job. Great. Absolutely. Let's go talk to budget. Let's see if we have budget for it. $200, no problem. You know what I mean? So like
Absolutely.
there are those things that kind of like that you can kind of barter is kind of the wrong word, but like find something that's mutually beneficial. I really like those ideas. Those are super solid. Those are very creative, out of the box thinking. And I think you're right. Like kind of the just like job healthcare does feel outdated. I'm a big fan of like maybe your healthcare shouldn't be tied to your job.
Yeah,
But
because then once you
it's a
leave,
whole
like
conversation.
it's like it keeps you there. That's the reason we have to think about why corporations were set up the way they were.
Yep.
And oftentimes it was to make sure you don't leave. Like they had these pension plans and these health cares and all these things where it's like, oh my God, if I leave this company, I'm never going to be able to find these benefits. So they threw those benefits at us, like you said. So that way we don't leave because it's like, I can't take my braces off if
Mm-hmm.
I leave the company. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, and I've been talking to a lot of women where they're like, you know what, I don't need health care. My husband has it. So now what? And so I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I like what you said about the laptop. So I actually have this too, where if a staff member has been with us for a specific period of time, we will provide equipment depending on what it is, like microphones,
Right.
cameras, because I want to make sure ring
Sure.
light. Like we want to make sure that when you're talking to a client, it's the same as when I'm talking to a client or when they see me on social media. So like the setup is important. And it's basically a property of the company that you lease out. And then for any reason,
Mm-hmm.
if they were to stop working with you, they would just ship it back and you send them the shipping label. And you always get that in writing. So like we have a separate contract just for like equipment lease. So it's
I
really
like
not that
that.
complicated to set up. And it's your property. It's on the balance sheet. It's your assets. So it's nothing really like it's going to obviously hurt spending $4,000 for an employee. But I mean, at the
Sure.
end of the day, it is yours and you will get it back.
Right. And it's the thing is like if that aids her in getting her job done better and faster, why would I not provide that? Like, hello, like that gets me
Exactly.
a better work product.
Give the
Yeah,
people what they want.
yes, exactly. All of this leading into a good point that you just made of like the corporate structure, also the investment side of things. So personal investing and business investing. This is a personal interest topic of mine for this year. So I've been reading my books and listening to podcasts and trying to find out like, okay, what's going to be my move here? Because I've self-employed since I was 20. I didn't have this set up for me. I never got a big girl job with like a corporate salary and a corporate setup. You all know how much I love a bragworthy brand. And when it comes to creating stickers and labels that elevate your branding, Sticker Giant is the brand that you can trust. Whether you're looking to create something for your next launch, elevate your brand, or add a little extra flair to your packaging, Sticker Giant's custom stickers and labels help you get your brand noticed in all the right ways. They've got a dedicated team handling every single detail, so you can count on Sticker Giant to bring your designs to life just the way that you imagined. If you're ready to give your brand an extra boost, go to stickergiant.com and use code KMA podcast for 15% off your order. Sticker Giant, your partner in the sticker and label business. So they always say there's no time to invest like the present. You're never going to regret investing early, but kind of lay the landscape for us, the difference between investing on a personal front as a female entrepreneur versus investing with the business, what your implications are, how you help people navigate that whole wild, wild west. At least that's how I perceive it to be.
Yeah, it is a wild, wild west now just because a lot of information is gatekept. So, like all the
Yeah.
stuff that multimillionaires are doing, it's not mainstream. And the moment it becomes mainstream, they switch up the strategy. So, the reality is your personal finance and your business finance should be relatively separate because you have to remember your business as just one asset. So, meaning if most of
Mhm.
your net worth and most of your income comes from the business, you do want to diversify because if you come through a slow year, then obviously your portfolio is going to be affected. So, it should be relatively separated. So, how I like to think about it from a personal standpoint, everyone should have the basics like life insurance and then also life insurance on your parents. I said this all the time. Like if you don't do anything else and you're close with your parents, get life insurance on them because I mean, I hate to say it, but like we know they're going to die someday. So it's like that's always one. I know it sounds messed up, but that's not what I mean. But
Yeah.
it's like that's one way to think
No, that's
about
a
it
good
because you
point.
know that's like also something to think about. And then
Inevitable.
another thing is like stock investments or whatever it is that you're into. I think you should always diversify your revenue that way, where it's like when you have the profit from your business or you have that extra money left from your salary, what are you putting it into? And
Right.
since from a business standpoint, you want to look at the balance sheet of like what assets do we have on here? And if there's none, I would be a little bit scared just because you think about assets as like wealth follows assets, meaning money is going to always go where the assets are. Even if there's a slow year, you can always guarantee that money is going to follow assets. So look at that balance sheet. What assets do you have on there? If it's just money that you're making, from services, it's not really diversified. Do you have any patents? Do you have any
Right.
copyrights? Do you have anything that's proprietary? Is there anything in the business where if you were have a hard time that you could sell right now? So think about one of my favorite brands who does this. Honestly, honestly better than anyone is Disney, because Disney is
Yeah.
looked at as like this beautiful magical place. No, this is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And when you look at their balance sheet, they have tons of assets. Some of their assets is like the princesses and the Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. They license that out to people. So when you go into a random store and you see a Mickey Mouse shirt, if they did it legally, they paid money to get that. You know what I'm saying? And then
Right.
also when you think about the movies that they license out to different platforms, you think about the Disney land, Disney World, then you think about the Disney app. Like Disney has so many assets, and that's why they're such a huge company, because money just follows them all around. And so you kind of think about that, like what ecosystem could you build? Another brand who's done this really well is like when you think about M&Ms, they're not just selling M&Ms in the
Mm-hmm.
store. They have like the custom made M&Ms on the website. They have an
Mm-hmm.
M&M museum. There's just so many ways that one business is generating money because they have so many assets. So kind of think about your business like that. And I think we are getting into like this creative world where your business can get that creative, where you can
Yeah.
say, okay, I want to do all these different things and execute and have all these assets. From a personal standpoint, I think what you should invest in is what you know. So oftentimes people they make a certain amount and they say, okay, I'm going to get a wealth advisor, CFO, all these people. And if you come to me, I'm going to tell you, okay, what do you want to invest in? Like, what are you good at? Because I can show you a list
Mm-hmm.
of investments, but the reality is if you don't know what you're investing in, you're always going to lose. And this makes me kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, it makes me so angry because I just care about women so much. But it's like, I've heard so many women say, well, I don't really know. Like my husband does it, or my financial advisor, I just do what he tells me
Right.
to. And it's like, have we
Right.
not seen enough scams? Have we not seen enough Ponzi schemes? Rihanna's
Right.
accountant scammed her. So if Rihanna got scammed, do you think that you're exempt? Know what you are investing in. If you are getting a report every single month, understand what that report is, because that's how scams happen. They send these, like fictitious reports, and people are like, oh, I see the returns. But if you actually are looking at an asset that you understand, you'd be like, huh, that doesn't make sense. So you have to at least have
Right.
some sort of basic understanding of the asset that you're investing
Right.
in. And so for you, I'm going to use you as an example. If you say, okay, like this is all I've been doing since I was 20 years old. Okay, well, start finding marketing and branding startups. Start finding startups in the AI space that's focused on marketing, because you'll be able to look at that business inside and out and say, hey, that actually doesn't make sense. I don't see that happening. Or you'll be able to say, you know what, I actually really believe in this. I want to put money
Right.
behind it. So you can kind of start there. And I always say, like, once you start investing in business, your knowledge and so many other things just becomes like it just
Totally.
heightens. So if you invest in a business, you can also approach a real estate deal and also kind of have an understanding, because now you're looking at it as just an asset. So I would say start with what you know.
Yes. Oh, that's such good advice. And I think to a similar point, I joined a leadership program this year, and I'm one of the only people in the room. I'm the only person in the room that's self-employed. I am the youngest one by probably like 5 years. And what's crazy to me is that the last session that we had was about nonprofits and serving on boards, and about how there is this gatekeepy kind of sense of like, well, I'm on the board, and like making it this big deal. Every single panelist that was on the panel said, all you have to do is show up. They're like, you'll be shocked by the time that you serve on a board to realize no one knows what they're doing. No one has any pre-qualifications. You've just been kept out of it because you didn't think you deserve to be there. And that is such a like copy paste scenario for so many things, with finance, with business, with AI, with tech, with all of these realms that we just touched on. It's like crazy to me. That's like, oh, you're telling me it was that easy? Like all you had to do was just like be curious enough to ask
Yep.
the question and be confident enough to throw yourself in the room. Can you think of instances like that, either with your clients or yourself, where you're like, oh shit, it was just like right there, and I just was telling myself this story in my head that turned out to be completely untrue?
I feel like that's the nature of everything with finance, because finance
Yeah.
in itself is gatekept. Like when we were talking about investments, so many people, like, they don't ask the right questions when it comes to investing. Like I've had one client where she's like, I want to invest in, stocks and crypto. And so I'm like, okay, just like, let's talk about it. Let me
Yep.
explain to you like in a basic nutshell. And then if you want, you can kind of, do your own research and see what works for you. And so we
Right.
always talk about it. And I notice she's so hesitant, and she's not hesitant in her business. So I'm like, okay, why are you hesitant with this? And you're not, I just don't know what to do. I'm like, okay, but at some point you have to make a move, or you have to
Right.
hire someone that does know. And so oftentimes as women, if we don't know, we just kind of stay still and we just kind of stay stagnant. To me, that's the worst thing that you could do. I almost would have
Mhm.
preferred if you actually did it, made a huge mistake, because then at least you can
Learn.
actually learn from it. But you just standing still in your investment journey and your wealth journey is never going to help you, because like you said, when it comes to investing, the best time is right now, because that's how investments are. They accumulate. So when you think about
Mhm.
people who have these massive net worths, like the Warren Buffetts of the world, and I hate using him because he's just so
Right.
crazy rich, but I think he's a
Right.
perfect example. It's just like so out of touch, but I
What
like
else
actually
will we
using.
I mean, we could use Sarah Blakely as an example.
Okay.
Spanx, now
Oh,
her new
okay. I
business
love that's
Sneaks.
actually a
Now
good
she's,
one.
into different realms. We could use Whitney Wolf Herd with, I mean, let's throw some female examples in there. Hell
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, let's do
Candace
it.
Nelson, we've got Sprinkles, she's got Pizzana, she's a shark on Shark Tank. we got options.
Okay, and these are my girls right here. Emma
Oh
Green as
yeah.
well. I love.
Yes, love.
These are people. Okay, if you pay attention to their portfolio, right? If you look at their track
Mhm.
record of success, you say, "Oh my God, they're so successful. They've done all these things." But if you think about it, they've done so many things. They have been doing this for a very long time, and they're constantly making moves. I would also even use Rihanna, even though she's at billionaire status.
Yeah.
If you kind of check her portfolio, she's done a lot of things. She wasn't just a singer; she was an icon. She's done several businesses, one of which have failed. She's raised funding from big brands like LVMH. Like she's done a lot of things, and she's made a lot of mistakes. So I think that's the thing about
Yeah.
entrepreneurship and also investing and becoming wealthy that women don't understand is that it's not going to always be a win. In fact, you're
Right.
probably going to take more losses. And this is investors investing strategy where it's like, okay, we're going to invest in a significant amount of investments. This is what venture capital do. They make a significant amount of investments and they're counting on probably only like 4 of those actually being winners. And so that's kind of how you
Right.
have to think about it. Now, obviously, you don't have to be that risky because there's also the Warren Buffett method where it's like we actually only make investments in things that we know and that we've studied. And we do that for a consistent period of time. But the one thing
Mhm.
that remains is that one, you take action and then you do it for a consistent period of time. And I think
Mhm.
that part is so important is because women say, okay, I've invested in stocks. Great. This
The
is good.
end.
And they just end
Yeah.
it off there. No, you have to
Yeah.
do that every single month. Like you have to have a portion of your money, or if that's what you want, a portion of your money going into a specific investment every single month. And then you manage that portfolio. You see what's working. Why is it down today and it's up tomorrow? What else can you do to leverage that portfolio that you have? And so it's a practice. Like I would always say, becoming wealthy is a practice. It's an art because you are constantly doing it. It's like a daily thing.
And it's not your fault that you don't know. The
Absolutely.
people that know were taught it by someone, or they were encouraged to pursue it. They were a boy in university and their parent told them, go study finance. Like that, do you know what I mean? Like there's no like shit. And that's the big thing I've had to overcome. It's like, oh, I feel like I should know this already. Like, I feel like I should know this already. Why don't I know this already? And like getting upset with myself that I don't know things. And I just have to remember, like, duh, I don't know them. No one taught me them. Like I never was shown this roadmap before. I'm looking at a map I've never seen. So it's one of those things too, is like getting over yourself and getting over your ego for that larger vision and like for the bigger picture stuff. But yeah, I think it's a really exciting time to learn about it. I think it's a very important time as women in
Mhm.
business to be learning about budget and be learning about finance. And I'm still shocked how many business owners I talk to that come to us for branding that don't have a plan. They don't have a revenue model. They don't have their systems worked out. They don't have their service offerings. They don't have a baseline. And I'm like, maybe now investing in branding is not your move. Like you got some other stuff to figure out. And I've literally said no to people before because I'm like, why don't you figure out your revenue model first? And then once you have that, then we can talk about branding because we don't want to brand for something that you don't know who you're talking to and how you're going to make money. You know,
No, I
that sounds like
actually
something
love
you
this.
help people with. Yeah.
I actually love this because I actually had to turn down people for CFO services if they don't have someone in marketing or sales. So it's the same
Oh,
thing
there you
where
go.
because
Yeah.
I'm like, if you, I can give you the best strategy, like the best financial strategy.
Sure.
We're going to dominate. We're going to scale to 5 million. But if you don't actually have someone or a team of people who are doing your marketing and or selling on your behalf, none of this
Mm-hmm.
is going to work because I'm just giving you
Mm-hmm.
strategies. Finance is really just a symptom of everything going right in your
Mm,
business. So
mhm.
how good your marketing, your sales, and your operations are shows in your finances. It shows
Right.
with your retention. It shows with how many people come back and book or how much you're making in revenue. So it's really the final step. So I always say, like, if you don't have that, I don't think that you should invest just because
Yeah.
that's something that you need. You need some sort of marketing, or if you are going to be the person to do it, are you truly committed? Like, do you have time blocks in your day where you're committed to marketing and selling the business? If not, I
Right.
cannot help you just because there's
Right.
nothing really I can do. So I like that too because so much of business is holistic and it's like that. I think that's also what makes it so difficult because it's like, okay, like what do I do first? What do I do second? And it really depends on the business model, but I definitely think marketing is one of those things that you kind of have to start with because you need to generate money. Once you have a sufficient amount of
Yeah.
money, and then you obviously invest in operations. So like, are you able to deliver this product or service consistently every single time? If the answer is yes, then you're ready for finance because I'm like, okay,
Right.
you've kind of figured all that stuff out already. And now my
Right.
job is to fine tune it. Now I'm going to put a budget behind it. Now I'm going to put, processes in place to make sure that you're able to scale this team, you're able to scale the business. So yeah, I like that. I definitely look at her business much more holistically now.
Yeah, and I kind of think about our back end like bookkeeping spreadsheets. Like our CPA team like pulls together, or our bookkeeping team pulls together like our closed, our pipeline, our go get numbers, like all this good data. And I'm not a spreadsheets person at all, but I just have to remind myself this is like going to the doctor and getting your blood work done. Right? Like this is just telling us this is the range, this is what we're shooting for. And if we eat a little bit healthier and we work out a little bit more and we get better sleep, like all of that stuff will go in the right direction, right? So it's like that good financial hygiene.
Yep.
What are your recommendations for people who are truly in like I've just been vibing. I'm a creative. I've been vibing out. I don't really like to look at my credit card statements or my bank statements. Like, what do you tell them are like, if you do nothing else, this is what I want you to do consistently for good financial hygiene?
Okay, if you're one of those people, because a lot of my clients are like that, I think if you're one of those people, you're gonna have to delegate. Like, and that's
Yeah.
okay, you know, because I'm the type, I'm not the most creative person in the world, and I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna delegate that. I'm not gonna try to be something I'm not. So I think that would be first, if you can. And I feel like there's something in your budget. Like if you can only hire a bookkeeper that's $250 a month, then go do that. Let's start there. But you have to have some grip on your finances. Now, if you are someone you're a little bit more analytical and you're like, okay, I can do a spreadsheet, I just don't know what to do with this information, then I would say book like one-time
Mm,
consultations where you're like, hey, here's all my financial reporting. Like, can you explain this to me? And then eventually you'll kind of understand the questions to ask and how to think. But if you don't do anything else as part of your financial routine, I think that bookkeeping weekly should be the very basics, because I think you need to have an understanding of what's going in and what's going out every single week. For a lot of my
mm-mm.
clients, like our bigger ones, we do that daily. Like there's an end of day report. I don't think that's necessary unless there's like a ton of transactions happening or you're a super
Sure.
large company. But I think at the very, very minimum, once a week, even if you're just like on the app of your bank and you're like, okay, this is what's going on, because that level of awareness sets you up for the next week.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be
Yep.
thinking, oh, should I make this risky investment if you know that you only have, a couple thousand in your account, whatever the case may be. So just having that level of awareness is so, so important. And once you get more comfortable with numbers and finance, I think we can kind of go more into like, okay, here's a budget. If you don't, I was telling people
Mhm.
before, it was like a podcast a while ago where I was saying, I used to just budget on my notes app. Like I didn't use a spreadsheet
Yeah.
before I started. When it was like my personal finance journey, it was just be on my notes. Like, hey, I'm going to make X amount this month. Let me just total up. Here's all my expenses. That's it. Like keep it in a way that you're going to be consistent. Like there is no perfect
Right.
way. Now, obviously, if you can have someone doing it for you and you have these big drawn out budgets, that's great. But at the end of the day, a budget is just telling you how much you're going to make and how much you're going to spend. It's really nothing else other than that, even
Right.
as fancy as it looks. So if you want to start there, I think that part is so important. But having financial awareness is very key before you move on to do anything else.
I think one of the sneaky places that I get tripped up on, and I know a lot of businesses do, which I always look at this time of year, is like, where am I spending money where I don't need to be spending money anymore? Like subscriptions, software subscriptions, and AI program subscriptions, and apps that I downloaded and used only 2 times. Then I've been paying on Apple. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like really taking stock of all of that. What other tips or tricks do you have for kind of this like audit into a new year? Like you said, your New Year's isn't starting till March, so you got some time. But what kind of other things are like, this is something you can do as soon as this episode is over and dig in, and you're already going to be in a better spot?
It's actually funny. I always tell my clients, like, of course we care about subscriptions, but that actually is not my main focus. So let's say I'm doing a
Interesting.
strategy session
Okay.
and it's not I know I'm not going to, see them every single month.
Sure.
I only tackle the top three because for the most part, if you look at your
Mm,
expenses, it's really going to be the majority of it. I would say about 70% of your expenses are really coming down to about 30% of the things that you're doing. So if let's say
true.
personal, I'll do a personal as an example because people can relate to it. Like
Yes.
most of your money is going out to your mortgage or your house, like if you're renting, your car, and maybe groceries, and for some
Yep.
people, the car, maybe instead of car, it'll be kids. But for the most part, it's like those top three things take up the most of your money. So in business, it's payroll. It's,
Mhm.
that's usually the number one thing that I can think of for women in business. And then
Mhm.
obviously tech actually has been crazy expensive these past few
Yep.
years because
Yep.
we're realizing we need this, we need Zapier, we need all of these things. But oftentimes it's really those three main things that you're doing that's messing you up. Oftentimes too, if you don't have a team, it's usually those risky investments where like, I'm going to get this coach, I'm going to get this marketing platform.
Yes.
You're making these investments hoping to get an ROI rather than sitting down and saying, okay, look, I know I need to invest in myself. What is the top thing? If I can only make one investment this year, what would that be and why? So,
Ooh.
think about it like that, because now that way you're not chasing the next investment. Instead, you're using that one, you're going to leverage it as long as you possibly can just to make sure you're getting the most out of it. So I think going after those three big things that are actually impacting your finances, because if you think about it, let's say most of your money goes out to payroll and you do tackle the subscriptions and the software, payroll is still there. And if you don't have a
Yeah.
method for, the best possible way to improve your cash flow, that problem is still going to persist. So I say go
Mhm.
after the biggest problems because that's going to make the most impact.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, Shay, if you could invest in one thing this year for Centure Financial and Shay Bacani, what would you invest in?
Actually, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think I would invest in mentorship from a CFO who's been doing this for like 30, 40
Ooh.
years. Or
Mhm.
because I actually have been thinking about this, a global CFO who's doing something like in Dubai or in Singapore, because I want to get their understanding of like, okay, how are you going about this new world of finance, which is crypto, which is blockchain, which is Web3? Like, how do we kind of integrate this? Because we still are at a time where the majority of people aren't on it. Like the top
Mhm.
1% are investing in digital assets. They're investing in crypto. So it's like, how do you kind of make that transition? So I've been kind of like on LinkedIn, like eyeing people and seeing like, what does that look like? But I do want to get some perspective of someone who is much more experienced and who's older, because I feel like I have a
Yeah.
very young, fresh experience on life and I love that. But I was like, okay, I want to kind of get some OGs who've like, you know what? I've seen something like this play out before. Here's kind of my take on it.
I completely agree with you. You're gonna love this, but one of our goals for our bingo card this year, my team and I came up with, is a client in every time zone. So we want
Oh
like
my
one
God, we're on
client
the
in each
same
time
page.
zone around the world. Because I totally agree. Like, especially if TikTok gets banned, like I'm just gonna hire someone in Canada to run my TikTok account. Like, I'm not gonna give up. Like,
Okay, I
hello,
love
I built
you.
like
Yes.
it's my biggest referral source besides true referrals. Like that's where I get new traffic. So like, okay, I'll have my Canadian contractor run my TikTok account until TikTok gets bought or acquired or reinstated or whatever here. But there's no reason that we can't work for someone. We had a client in Italy. There's no reason that the Canadian contractor running my TikTok account can't recruit clients from Italy or Singapore or Australia or New Zealand or anything like that. So like, why would I just throw the towel in on that? So that's something I'm experimenting with. But I like your idea of tapping into mentorship of someone that's seen some shit, because I think a lot of us younger people, like we think, oh my gosh, they don't know what they're talking about. Blah, 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 blah. But business problems are business problems are business problems. Everything, like the true core, the root, especially what we do as entrepreneurs, like we're all in the business of helping people. So if you can talk to someone who's helped people for 40 years longer than you, like, okay, maybe we're not talking crypto, but like, how did you help people through economic recession? How do you help people rebuild after a fire? You know what I mean? Like when all your assets are gone, like now
Absolutely.
what do you do? Right? Like there's so many use cases for tapping into someone that's had some real like life experience. I'm with you on that. I'm really seeking that type of mentor as well. So if you find somebody on the marketing
I know,
side,
I'm scouting. I
send
actually want to
them
talk
my
about
way.
something you said
Please.
when you were talking about the global, like looking for someone global, because
Yeah.
this is something I was actually I sent out a report this week to my clients. And one of the things that I said was that you're going to have to start thinking of a global business because we are entering a
Mhm.
global economy. And to me, I mean, if getting conspiracy theorists, I'm like, I think this is why
Yeah.
they tried to ban TikTok, because they started to realize like, okay, this economy is getting much more global and they can't stop
Yes.
it. It's going to happen for sure the moment that
Yeah.
digital currency is normalized, and we're almost there. Like I would
Mhm.
argue probably by the end of the year, if not 2026, we're gonna all be on some form of digital currency. If it's probably not, even if it's not like the mainstream ones we've heard of, because
Right.
what people are starting to
Right.
realize is that I could hire someone in Canada, India, China, and all these different places, and I can legitimately build a firm, but also I can have customers in these places. Because I don't know if you've been noticing all these platforms, like they've been auto translating on all of the platforms. So language
Mhm.
is no longer going to be a
Mhm.
barrier. But I was thinking about this about a
The
couple of years.
podcasts.
Podcast,
The podcast can be auto
media
translated.
has been global. The moment that you have
Uh-huh.
global media is the moment you can have global customers. And I'm a firm
Mhm.
believer in this. And I've been telling all of my clients this. Actually, I have a client, she's in marketing. And she was like, what are we gonna do? Like for this year, we were talking about like our strategy. And I
Mhm.
said, you are going to be global. And we literally mapped out her entire calendar of where she's gonna go. She's going to London, Dubai this year. She's going to so many different places and like really establishing her name there at all these different wellness clubs that she's gonna go to. And I'm like, yes, we're doing this because I'd rather us
Mhm.
give it a shot and we try to build this global brand than
Mhm.
waiting to you have all your competitors there. And so I think also
Mhm.
what we have to remember as US based brands, like I know we all like complain about our country and complain about our government, but we are still the United States of America, meaning we still holds like a lot of rank at other places.
Yeah.
So you just saying
True.
we're a US company, that alone is saying, okay, I need to hear what you have to say because a lot of
True.
countries want to emulate what we have. I remember I went to Canada for a business conference, and it was like a conference where it was a lot of people who are in startups, they're raising capital. And so we're just talking. They're like, where are you from? I was like, oh, I'm from the US. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, yeah, California. California,
Oh,
Silicon Valley. Like,
California. I know,
they
isn't
went
that funny?
ballistic. I said, oh, let me lead with that, okay? Because what I
Mhm.
noticed, the huge gap in the market is that if you're an international company, you want US investors. It's very rare
Yes,
you
of
want an
course.
investor from your country. And so having that, I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing. And then I started to realize, like, not only do people want that, but it's actually very difficult because the cultural nuance. Like when you are pitching
Oh,
to a US
completely.
investor, you have about 3 minutes. Like you have to get your
Mhm.
point across. Versus if you are pitching
Mhm.
to like a Korean investor, they want an hour-long pitch. They want to see the details.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
they don't know the cultural nuance that you can't do that here. And so I'm like, okay, this is a market for this. And then I started to notice that all around the world, they actually want what we have, even if it's just
Yes.
our ideas and our strategies, because we've been
Yes.
doing this for a long time versus other countries are now starting to have this small business economy. We've been doing this. So I think take that for granted. I mean, don't take that for
Yeah.
granted and actually
Yeah.
start globalizing the business.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, we did rebranding for a plastic surgery center that was in both Barcelona and Belgium,
Mhm.
and literally was approached because like, wow, you have such an American energy. We're trying to build this business after the California model of plastic surgery. Like it was such a selling point, and I was like, really? Like, don't you find me annoying? Like, I just like like I just really like kind of downplayed it. But like right now, we're in contract negotiations with like a company, a very well known company that's HQ is in Japan, and I'm like,
Mhm.
great, I'd love to get on a plane to Japan, please.
Yes.
So I know that you and I are both manifestors as well, and we like dabble in the woo woo stuff of like you have to speak your goals into fruition.
Absolutely.
So we made like the bingo card, but I don't know if you saw this year. We also made like a fake boarding pass and a fake blank check.
Yes,
So you
I
could
saw that.
like write out where you'd want to be like sent round
Mhm.
trip, by the client of your
I love
choice
that.
or the opportunity of your choice. And I think it's fun to talk about because it's like it is that next level. It does feel like, like the 3.0 of what we're doing now. And I think that's really exciting. But yeah, I think to only consider a US market or US marketing is playing small in a
Oh,
lot of ways,
absolutely.
you know?
Especially now as we go into the year, like if you feel like the majority of Americans are scared, I'm like, okay, well, let's tap into
Who's
another
not?
market.
Who's ready to spend some money?
Who's ready? That's what I think. I'm like, so mentally, I'm in Dubai right now. Mentally, I am in
Yep.
Singapore. Mentally, I am in
Yep.
Japan. Like, I am all these countries because I'm like, the wealth is growing there. I'm in finance. I manage wealth. Why would I not be
Yeah.
there? Also, the
Why would I
reality is,
not?
too, California is still very strong and we
Yep.
are still a strong economy on our own. And so the fact that you said, like, she's like, I want to build a California plastic surgery, leverage that. Like, if you are in California, sell that. I was just telling one of my clients, she's here in California as well. And I said, when you create these pitch decks saying, like, I want to build, an Equinox for you guys. I want to build the next
Sure.
Lululemon for you guys. Like if you are, the person who's cultivating these American brands, lead with that because that's actually what they want to see. They want an
Yes.
American consumer. Everyone around the world wants an American consumer. That's why we've
Yes.
been seeing a rise of these visas from other countries where they're like, hey, I want to get Americans here, even if you work remotely. Go find out what those countries are and who some of those key players are in those industries and start pitching to those businesses on LinkedIn and like lead with your credentials and the fact that you're from America. And I think something will come out of it. Even if it's not like, you have like a top client, even if you just have one client in another country, you can kind of leverage that. Like,
Right.
hey, we service clients globally. That's something people want to hear.
What a cool, like, this is why it ended up on our goal list, is like what a cool value proposition of MKW Creative Co. to be like we service clients in every single time zone.
I actually like that. I love it.
That's sick. There's 24 time zones. Granted, some of them I think are in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, so we'll have to figure out how to work around that. But like, what a sick goal to work towards. Like, I don't know. It just like sounds like a fun thing.
What a time to
Bragging
be
rights.
alive.
What a time. What a time.
That's what
Right?
I think I love most about this time because yes, it's very hard. We have to deal with inflation and we have to deal with all these
Sure.
things that are going on. But I'm like, on the other side of it, we have this global economy. We have our phone. We can literally, hire work from anywhere. We have Upwork. We have LinkedIn. We have all these tools and platforms to be able to scale. I think it just requires focus because we have all the
Yes.
tools and resources. We have AI. We have Bard. We have ChatGPT. Like we have so many things that are very low cost right now. Use them, leverage them because we don't know when they're
Mhm.
going to go up again. I know ChatGPT came out with a $200 a month version
Mhm.
and it's like, okay, so let's just use it as much as we can while it's still at this
Mhm.
price point.
And to focus. I love that you said that. It's like, let's grow, but let's grow focused. Oh my gosh. I could talk to you, I think, forever because we are so on the same wavelength. It's so fun.
Yes.
But we are unfortunately out of time. So please tell people where they can find you, follow you, work with you, get more information. I know you've got these incredible trends reports that you're working on. So plug yourself, please.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Centure Financial or Shay and Finance and TikTok while we still have it, Shay and
Mhm.
Finance. And we've actually just transitioned to long form content on YouTube as well, Shay and
Nice.
Finance from all those deep dives. And I'm actually going to be launching a video, How to Win in 2025, where we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper on a lot of the topics that we just talked about. So I'm really excited for that. But also, my DMs are open. And, I always say, like, if I have the time and you send me a message, like, I'm always going to respond. It's not going to be like a full blown strategy session, but it's like, hey, I'm in this situation. Like, what would you say? What would you recommend? My DMs are always open because I know that oftentimes with finance, there is a level of inaccessibility because of how expensive it is. So I always try to say, like, if you guys want any sort of content, let me know so I can put it out for you because I know
Sure.
how financial services, there is like, it's gate kept because of the price point. But at the same time, now we have this content. So leverage it, use it, DM
Right.
me, and let's just connect. We are invite or referral only. But if you reach out and let me know that you found me from this podcast, then we'll definitely prioritize it.
Yay. Thank you so much. And we so appreciate it. I know you guys are going to love this one. So if you listen to the whole thing and you want to share it with your friends, please do so. Don't forget to find us also on YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts, join the Facebook group. And that's it. Thanks so much, Shay. We'll catch you
Bye.
next time,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.